Week 1, exploring the Illustrator Workspace. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a tour of Illustrator to point out where certain things are at. So right now I just have the interface, the shell open. I do not have any documents open. Just to show you what it would look like, I'll go to File, File and New. And we'll come back to this in a minute to talk about some of these details. I'm just going to click OK and use the default. And there you see I have a new page, a new document open. So walking around the interface here, I'll start up here at the top. And you can see where my cursor is rolling back and forth. This is the menu bar. Some people call this the application bar. So it would be a good idea just to start taking a peek in each one of these menu items. Typically, a menu is set up in a verb-noun relationship. So if the menu title is a verb, everything under it's a noun. If it's a noun, then everything under it's a verb. It doesn't always follow that rule, but that's a good kind of thing to think about as you're trying to search for certain things. Another item here at the very top over to the right though, it says Essentials. And so what this is actually a workspace that has been saved. So you can be as messy as you want in Illustrator, throwing panels and things all over the place, and by one little click of the button, reset it all into a neat and organized desktop again. So it's a good idea to start out working in Essentials. Some of these are for specific applications. For instance, if I'm going to be doing some work with typography, I could click typography, and what happens is my panels change according to the tools it thinks I'm going to need. All right, we're going to go back to Essentials for right now. One other thing, I can reach that same workspace by going to Windows and Workspace, and there it is again, same exact thing. So you'll find as we start going through Illustrator, there are multiple places, there are multiple ways of doing things, and there is no right way. It's the way that you are most comfortable with. Another piece here, I guess, besides resetting, you also can create a new workspace. So if you decide that there are certain panels that you would like to have visible, that you like to have up when you're working, you can arrange it and then choose new workspace. When you do that, you're prompted with a way to save it. So if I just save this as class example and click OK, all right, I didn't change anything, but it did change my workspace. So now you can see class example is listed there. I'm going to go back to Essentials. All right, so we also have right below our menu is what we would say our control panel. This control panel will give specific options for whatever tool I have selected. So it's based on my tool, and if I choose, say, a different tool, you can see some things happening here. It will make more sense as we get going and have different things selected. The area that you see here looks like my piece of paper. That's my artboard. So this is where my work is happening. It used to be, and I'm not sure with the newer versions, but the largest was 227 inches by 227 inches. So quite large. And you can change your size when we choose to create a new document. We're able to adjust that. Now outside here in this gray area is called the scratch board. There are different names, paste board. If I do a zoom out, and I'll show you by going to the zoom tool here, we're going to come back to this tool in a minute. But zooming out, and I'm going to kind of chase it around so it stays in the middle of my page, you can see I can go to where we call this the end of the world. So this whole area here, this darker gray area, is the scratch board. It's the holding area. It's saved with my document, but it would not print. It's kind of just the extra. Now you do have to remember, if you load this up with a bunch of extra stuff, maybe multiple versions of things, you know, you're not quite sure. Let me use my space bar here to move down. It will increase the file size. So you do have to remember that you can't just load it up with a bunch of junk and think, oh, it's just off the page, out of sight, out of mind. It still will increase your file size. All right, the toolbox. So the toolbox, I can choose to view as a single column, or I can choose to view it 2 up. Personally, I like to view it 2 up. When I have it as a single column, things sort of fall off. So 2 up, I can see everything. One of the things that will happen is you'll see a tooltip. And again, beginning these first few weeks, if you're new to Illustrator, just go through all of the tools and just read them. What's in parentheses there? For instance, on the pen tool, parentheses is a P. That's our quick key. Eventually, you will learn those quick keys, and that will be very important to become efficient in Illustrator. Initially, you're not going to remember it all. It's overwhelming. So just to learn to identify what these tools are is the first step. And so that just, walking through, taking little pieces at a time. The tools are separated. If you can see, there's a very faint line in between different sections here. I'm kind of rolling over it right now with my mouse. So there's a purpose to how they're grouped. For instance, here's a lot of selection tools. This is going to probably be one of your most used tools, the selection tool. These tools here are some more drawing tools. These tools are more of a transformation tool. So it'll make sense as we go through Illustrator. Not all the tools are visible. We call it the little dog ear at the bottom corner. When you click on that, you'll see that some of these have a hidden tool behind them. For instance, this type tool, if I click on the little dog ear, there are 6 tools hiding behind the regular old type tool. So this is, again, more to learn, but just become familiar with it. Most of the time, they have a purpose for being together. If you notice that when there are hidden tools, and I open it, there's this little, what we call tear off tab. So this is a place where I can click, and now those tools that were once hidden and I couldn't see become a floating panel. Okay, I can move it wherever I want to. And if I choose to not have it open anymore, I can use the X and it just hides it. Now I didn't take away those tools, they are still there. I just sort of put them back. Okay? So it's good to start learning some of the quick keys, and the quick keys are not case sensitive, so it doesn't matter if you've got your caps lock on or not. So if I start clicking, right now my selection tool is active. You can see it's darkened, and sometimes we'll see our cursor will change as well. If I choose to press P, you can see that now it navigated to the pen tool. V is back to that selection tool. A is over to what we call the direct selection tool. We'll explain the difference there here soon. I is for eyedropper. So now here we start, H for hand, that makes sense. Z for zoom, that makes sense. But V for selection or I for eyedropper, they don't all make sense. So there's a little bit of a learning curve there. The panels over on the right side. So the panels I have collapsed at the moment. There they open up. So again, we have double arrows here to sort of minimize or collapse and expand. So this whole area here we call the panel dock. So the panel dock can be adjusted. This is what has been set because we chose the Essentials workspace. Okay, so I can rearrange these. They are movable. Some of the panels are grouped. So if I take this whole group out, you can see that I have a swatches panel, a brushes panel, and a symbols panel. This is a tabbed view here. They're all grouped together. So a lot of times these panels are grouped again because of a purpose. Not all the panels are visible. If I go under window, you can see the ones with the check mark are the ones that are open and visible on top. For instance, brushes is open, but it's not visible at the moment, so I do not see a checkbox there. If I check it, boom, it pops up. So you can see there's a lot more, and this actually scrolls down. Okay, so there's a lot of them here, and there are a few, like type, that have a sub or cascading menu that pops out. So here, if I click character, the whole group related. So I get character panel, I get the paragraph panel, and I get the open type panel. So they are, there's a reason behind that. If I wanted to separate these, say I wanted to see the character and the paragraph at the same time, I can click that tab and drag them off. Okay, and if I want to put them back together, I can put them back together. You get a dark and blue. And if I want to put character over here, watch how I get a dark blue outline, and there it is. So completely movable, completely customizable, and you can see that once, you know, I may have, you know, ones that I like to have up. I like how they are arranged. Maybe I really like to have my paragraph. I personally like to have character on top of paragraph. Maybe I like it right in that spot. This is a time where then I can save this workspace. And then every time I open, I can use that workspace and it's the way I want it. All right, so you can see that if I start tearing off tools, oops, missed it. Tear off the tools. I've got tools open. Maybe I take these slice tools. That's sort of a web thing. All right, and I start making a complete mess. The nice thing is, go back to Essentials, choose to reset Essentials, and everything gets put back nice and neat for me. All right, the other piece over here with the panels, right now they're collapsed all the way down to their icons. So you can have, you know, just the icon view. Once you start learning what in the world this icon stands for, it's kind of nice because it clears the space, gives you more working room. There is a new feature with Creative Cloud, which allows us to create our own tool panel. Under Window, if I scroll back up to the top here, so I'm under the Window menu, go to Tools, and New Tools panel. This is kind of cool. I can name it. So again, I'll stick with our really creative name of class example. And now I have a way that I can take some of my most favorite tools and drag them so that now I have just a handy dandy little mini toolbar. So that's kind of a nice little feature, and again, when I'm done with it, just close it and it's gone. All right, a couple of features on just manipulating around in my document. So you saw me using some quick keys, and those will come with time. You'll learn them as you start utilizing InDesign more. To start with, though, the zoom. So zooming is very important. Zooming in, zooming out. Zooming in to get a closer view, zooming out to look at it from more of a distance. So we have our zoom tool, but to be honest, once you get used to Illustrator, I can guarantee you're not going to move your mouse down to the zoom tool or to the hand tool. You're going to use a shortcut key. I was at a seminar once and they talked about in an 8-hour day you can save 2 hours just by using shortcut keys, because mouse travel time takes time. So you know, work more efficiently, work you know, faster is all a very good thing. So zooming, when I click on my zoom tool, I do get the plus sign to zoom in, and I just need to click, 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 and I can zoom in. I can zoom in all the way to 6,400%. How do I know where I'm at? Number one, right here in my title, so this is an untitled document, at 200%. I also get my color mode. I'm in CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and K is for key color, which is black. And my view, I'm in, my screen mode is in preview. Okay, so that just gives me a little bit of information. Also at the bottom, if you watch where my mouse is going, 200% right down here at the bottom as well. I actually have a little pop-up that I can choose to directly go. Here's 64. You'll lose yourself. If you go 6,400%, you're going to get lost. You're not going to know where you're at in your document. That's where the next tool comes in nicely. So I can actually hold down my Alt key or my Option key and back up, but you can see it's going to take a while because I was at 64%. And again, you could be somewhere where you're totally lost. I just used my space bar to navigate to my hand. I do that so automatically. That would be the same as going over here to your hand and moving around. So the hand tool lets me move my piece of paper. I'm sitting at a desk. I have a piece of paper. I put my hand on that piece of paper and I move it around on my desk. That's exactly what I'm doing with this. Okay, so I don't ever go to my hand tool. I instead just press my space bar. And I'll show you if I'm on my selection tool here, press my space bar, There's my hand tool. Let up on my space bar. I'm back to the tool that I was at before. Very nice shortcut. All right, another zoom. So I said I don't use my zoom tool. So there are a couple of ways. A lot of beginners remember the Control plus and Control minus, and you can't really see what's going on here. Now you can see an edge. Control minus, zoom out. Control plus, zoom in. Personally, I do not use that method because I'm right-handed. My right hand is always on my mouse. I have to cross my left hand across my keyboard to get to Control plus, Control minus. So instead, my left hand is constantly resting on the keyboard over by the Control and the space bar and the Alt. So I use Control and space bar with my left hand to zoom in. My right hand's on the mouse. I let up on my Control space bar, and I'm back at it. I hold down Control space bar, and this time Alt. I'm now to my minus, and I can zoom out. Okay, so it's a more efficient way. All right, a couple of last things here to review. Rulers. This is an easy one. I can go under View, and View is a great place to view things. So you're viewing, again, here's the zoom in, zoom out. You can view guides, you can view a grid, you can view a lot of things. And there are rulers here as well. But rulers are an easy one to remember. Control R, R for rulers. So if I'm back out on my artboard here, Control R, rulers are on. And you can see them across the top and the left. Control R, rulers are off. So you can turn those on and off. To change the unit of measurement, I'm going to right click, and you can see the different types of measurements that I can choose. Typically, if you're working in a digital format for digital purpose, you're going to stay at points. If you're doing print, you're probably going to be at inches. I can also drag out what I call guides, and guides are not printable. They don't print. They're not printing. And they allow me to line things up or, use it as a guide. So those are really kind of nice as well. And of course, if I want that all to go away, I can go here to guides, and I can unlock them because they are by default locked, so I can't move them around. But I also can clear them, and they are gone. All right. A last piece here in this first section on just exploring the workspace. Under Edit, I have Preferences, and Preferences allows me to change my preferences for different pieces. So I can go to General, and this allows me to change specific settings for Illustrator. Okay, so one of the things that I like to change, and if you go to Preferences, you see a bunch of things listed. It's the same thing as navigating through these items. All right, so I like to keep my type at points, my stroke at points. Those you want to leave alone. Don't go out here and start messing around with too many of these things until you know what you're doing. So leave them alone. The only thing I tend to change is under User Interface. Sometimes I like to uncheck this Open Document as tabs, because right now every new document, if you watch from my cursor, will open as a new tab. Sometimes I like to see my documents side by side. I can do that still by clicking and dragging, but sometimes I get a little annoyed by having everything tabbed across, so I undo that. That's a personal preference though. All right, so we'll come back out here and explore this in more detail as we get going with Illustrator a bit more.